Welcome back to the Khans podcast. Here, we explore the many facets of Turkic history, culture, religion, and politics. You can become a supporter of our cause by subscribing to our Patreon page or by simply clicking on the Become a Member button here on YouTube. On both pages, you'll receive the same benefits and behind-the-scenes footage. Your support helps us keep this channel going. In the first episode, we gave a broad outline of the Turkic peoples. We talked about the origins and evolution of the Turkic languages and listed several empires like those of the Kök-Türks and Ottomans. But we only outlined the political dimensions of the Kök-Türk Empire. And when we compare the Kök-Türks to the Ottomans or many other later Turkic empires, there is one key difference that needs to be talked about: religion. Contrary to popular belief, the original religion of the Turks, and with that, we man all Turkic peoples of ancient times, was Tengrism, the belief in Tengri. But who exactly is Tengri? Was this a monotheistic religion like Islam or a polytheistic religion, comparable to the likes of Egyptian, Greek, and Roman religions? After all, you have probably also heard of Erlik and Umay, two beings of Tengrism that are seemingly also deities. How do they fit into the picture? And lastly, how is life in a society supposed to be structured according to Tengrism? Let's find out. Tengrism, also known as Tengrianism, is a religion with shamanistic and animistic elements that originated in northern or northeast Asia and was practiced by various Turkic and Mongol peoples across all of Eurasia, from Manchuria to Ukraine. The religion is named after Tengri, the sky god that is considered the highest deity in the Tengrist pantheon. Arguably, this already implies a polytheistic nature of the religion, but we'll go into detail later on. It emerged among various Turkic and Mongolic tribes that inhabited the region, and was influenced by the shamanic and animistic beliefs of these peoples as well as those of their ancestors. The farther back in time we go, the less centralized do these societies become. As we saw in the last episode, Turkic tribes, but also Mongolic tribes, used to live in political autonomy for most of antiquity. There was no political entity that could have united many or even all of these nomadic tribes. In its place, there was the family core element of a tribe. A family usually consisted of a man and a woman in wedlock, 2 to 3 children, and their livestock. More often than not, people reached a higher age than we'd think, and thus the pair's parents would also be included in the yurt. A yurt is a sort of very large tent, very stable and capable of isolating its inhabitants against the heat and cold from outside. As the tribe needed to move from place to place due to economic reasons, the yurt was the ideal center of living as it could be dismantled and reassembled at any time, quickly. During the first millennium BCE, more and more tribes became semi-nomadic. They had fixed places where they would assemble their yurts, but resided in one of at least 2 places, depending on the time of year. Then, in the 3rd century BCE, the Xiongnu Confederation was established. Originally founded by Teoman, it was led by Mede Han, his son and murderer, by the way, into battle against the Chinese. As the ancient Chinese Han dynasty wanted to expand further north into modern-day Mongolia, the Turkic and Mongolic tribes banded together and for the first time ever attacked the Chinese as a team. They became known as the Xiongnu, the ancient Huns. Their original self-designation was, most likely, indeed Huna, or simply Hun. In effect, it was an assembly of 26 various nations, and its territory encompassed several million square kilometers. The people residing in the western part of what is now the country of Mongolia were most likely Turks, and indeed the elite of the Huns seem to have spoken a Turkic language. After a few centuries, the confederation was disbanded, as the Xiongnu splintered into 4 different groups of tribes. Some migrated completely away from Mongolia into Western Central Asia and established new Hunnic dynasties. With them, Tengrism also expanded, because the very first mention of Tengri was handed down from a Chinese source, where the Xiongnu emperors are called Chengli. This is a Chinese mispronunciation of Tengri. The Xiongnu leaders bore the titles Shanyu, which according to the Chinese meant emperor, and interestingly, Tengri. Many centuries later, several Kök-Türk Khagans of the 7th and 8th centuries would also bear the title of Tengri. An example would be the Tengri-like Tengri-born Bilka Khagan. The difference in political terms is that Shanyu had been replaced by Kagan, which stems from the term Kayhan, first attested during the Xianbei, another confederation that was established in between the Xiongnu and Kök-Türk eras. With the Kök-Türks, though, Tengrism received an elevation of sorts. Our main primary sources for Kök-Türk history are Chinese, Persian, and Greek texts. But unlike the Huns of antiquity, the Kök-Türks wrote down their own history by themselves, too. In the so-called Orkhon inscriptions, the Ashina dynasty of the Second Kök-Türk Empire, which ruled between 681 and 745 CE, listed its rise to power, the deeds of their forefathers, their epic wars against the Chinese and other Turkic empires, as well as their cultural outlook. In these inscriptions, Tengri and Umay make an appearance. Bilge Kagan, most famous Kök-Türk ruler of all time, had the following written down.
All the Turkic people were subject to China. When the Turks could not crown their own Kagan anymore, they separated from China. However, after they left their new Kagan, they rejoined the Chinese. Tengri said the following to them, I have given you a Kagan. You who have left your Kagan have subjugated yourselves to China. Because the Turk people became dependent again, Tengri said, the Turk people became weak, exhausted, and died. There were no more living people on noble Turkic land.
Between the First and Second Kök-Türk empires, the Chinese had indeed dominated Central Asia and ousted the Ashina dynasty from Mongolia. Many Ashina members were in quarantine in China, but in 679 CE they resisted. After one failed revolt after another, 2 years later, a certain Kök-Türk finally succeeded and freed his people from Chinese bondage. He is the one who later came to prominence under the name Ilturish, he who gathered the lands. Bilge says the following about his father.
Tengri placed my father Elturish and my mother Elbilke Hatun to the throne. My father, the Kagan, gathered 17 men. All the men who heard that he had made a raid. The city dwellers came to the field, and the mountain dwellers came down, and 70 brave warriors gathered together. Tengri gave them power and strength. Father's warriors were as strong as lions, and their enemies were as submissive as sheep. In all, there were 700 warriors, and these 700 brave warriors made our people armed masters, just as our ancestors had been at that time. They had been exhausted, enslaved, deprived of supremacy. The Chinese people in the south were our enemy. The 9 Oguz tribe was also our enemy. The Kyrgyz Kurikan, 30 Tatar Khitan, and Tatabi were also enemies.
From this, we can determine the following. Firstly, Ilturish had a lot of enemies. He not only fought against the sedentary Chinese, but against his own Turkic kin as well as the Mongolic tribes, because they did not accept Ashina rule voluntarily. Secondly, Bilge tells the story as if Ilturish had been made ruler by the will of Tengri, the will of heaven. Indeed, this is the first time where we have a source written by a steppe people, in which they legitimize the rule of their Kagan by using their prime deity. The Ashina's narrative is linked to the fact that Ilturish established his rule in Otukun. This was a sacred place, located somewhere along the Orkhon River in Mongolia and apparently surrounded by mountains and a forest. Ilturish entered the forest, and while we don't know what he encountered in the center of it, let alone what he actually did there, once he left the forest, he greeted his followers as Kagan. The Kagan was a title in the hands of Tengri. He gave the Turks a Kagan, they abandoned him. Then he gave him another one, and this time the Turks did not leave his side. Probably because Ilturish was, in reality, successful against the Chinese and others. As he had established rule over Otukun, he also gained Kut. This is a form of energy that flows through all living things. It's an energy field that surrounds us and binds us. Unlike the Force in Star Wars, though, a person could not use the Kut to throw rocks around the air or choke somebody. But the one who possessed more Kut than the others did receive benefits. The Kutlu, the one blessed with Kut power, was stronger, more resilient, and most importantly more assertive than normal people. Thus, Ilturish was a charismatic leader, to put it with Max Weber's words. How the association between Tengri and the Kut looked like, we don't know. It is certain that the Kut used to be a thing long before the Kök-Türks established their empire. But starting with the Kök-Türks, perhaps even with the Xiongnu, leaders of Eurasian steppe empires became sacrosanct. Those who attacked the Kagan also attacked Tengri. earthly ruler and god, worked in harmony. But is Tengri really the equivalent of the one and only god? Tengri is often referred to as the sky god, and is believed to be the creator and ruler of the universe. The name Tengri itself means heaven or sky in the Turkic languages. Tengri is viewed as an omnipotent, supreme, and all-encompassing deity that watches over and guides all living beings. Tengri is a being that, unlike those of other religions, was never truly personified as being human-like. This entity took on a similar role in the cosmology of Tengrism as the deity An for the Sumerians or Zeus for the Greeks. But whereby Zeus was the only one to be depicted as a humanoid figure, An or Tengri do not have any personality traits. We cannot claim how Tengri looked or perhaps sounded like. Yet it is difficult describing Tengri's role in this religion without using some kind of personification. In essence, Tengri was a benevolent god, but also one that could punish people, as we have seen in the case study about the Kök-Türks. On the other hand, Tengri could also take on a neutral role. After all, for most of Turkic history, Tengri is only rarely mentioned. We can deduce that Tengri did intervene in human affairs, but not on a constant basis. Tengri has further been called God of the Turks by several non-Tengris Turkic peoples, as well as non-Turkic observers in Asia and the Middle East. Nonetheless, whether someone was a Turk or not wasn't important for Tengri. He did not even care whether a person worshipped this sky deity or not. If we assume that Tengri right now is watching us from above, observing each step we make, we can also claim the following. Let's imagine there are two people walking side by side on the street, with the first one being a Tengrist fanatic, praising Tengri at every possible opportunity, and discrediting all other deities or gods of other religions. At the same time, he lives a miserable life. He is unjust towards others, is a pathological liar, resorts to violence, and is generally an ignorant person. The second person does not believe in Tengri at all, is perhaps follower of a different religious idea, or does not believe in any god. But this person is a good person, a person that cares for other people, someone who is courteous, leads a decent life, refrains from indulging in excesses, respects the world around them, and is reasonable. Well, in this case, Tengri might punish the first person, his own follower, and reward the second person, because Tengri does not care about religious affiliation. This is one of the most important aspects of Tengrism. This religion is generally very tolerant of other religious beliefs. That is the reason why the Turkic peoples so easily assimilated to other cultures in East and West Asia, as well as in Europe and the Near East. While cultural tolerance is essential to the Torah, the ancient Turkic secular customs, religious tolerance is the foundation of Tengrism. We are not going to list all of the Turkic deities, but are going to look at two more beings that are central figures in Tengrism: Erlik, the guardian of the underworld, and the aforementioned Umay. Umay is the goddess of fertility, childbirth, and family. She is also known as the mother goddess and is often depicted as a nurturing figure. Umay is believed to be responsible for the creation of life and the protection of children and families. In Tengrism, Umay is often worshipped by women who seek fertility and safe childbirth. She's also considered to be the protector of the family and is often invoked during important family events such as weddings and funerals. Even today, Turkic women tie strings attached with small cradles to will a baby from Umay. This belief can be seen with the Tungusic peoples in southern Siberia and the Altay people. Umay is also the protector of the tree of life, the Ulukayan in Turkish. Erlik, on the other hand, is the guardian of the underworld. He is often depicted as a dark and malevolent figure, associated with sickness, disease, and evil. Erlik is believed to be responsible for judging the souls of the dead and determining their fate in the afterlife. In Tengrism, Erlik is often feared and avoided, as he is believed to bring misfortune and death. However, he is also seen as a necessary force in the cycle of life and death, and is sometimes invoked for protection against malevolent spirits and illness. This is another aspect that differentiates Tengrism from many other religions. Tengri, Umay, and Erlik do not work against each other, they work together. All three deities are part of the cycle of life. While Tengri is seen as the supreme creator and most powerful deity, he silently watches from above. Meanwhile on Earth, Umay secures the birth of children and protects humans in general. Further south in the underworld, Erlik takes care of those who have died and led a sinful life. In general, life after death continues in Tengrism, but the concepts of heaven or hell do not fully apply here. After a person dies, their soul either flies to the Ukmak, a sort of heaven situated on the higher floors of the cosmos, or goes beneath the earth into the Tamag, the underworld of Erlik. The good souls stay in the Ukmak while the bad souls are getting cleansed in the Tamag. But after they have been purified, they may also rise to the Ukmak and rejoice with their deceased families and friends. Therefore, hell in Tengrism is not a place where people would burn forever or anything of this sort. The display of Erlik as being this evil, demonic monster is therefore wrong. Erlik is not Satan. In Tengrism, the afterlife is a place similar to Earth, but with untouched nature and full of souls who neither commit sins nor violate the rules of harmony. In a certain sense, the cosmology of the Turks is very similar to the worldviews of other cultures. Depending on the subject, parallels can be seen with the ancient religions of the Chinese, Koreans, Vikings, and Indians. To maintain the balance of power, Tengri, Umay, and Erlik need other beings to serve as their assistants. Tengri and Umay regularly send messengers out into the world of humans to observe developments within society. Such messengers can appear in the form of animals as well as things in nature. They are called Yer-Su Earth-Water spirits. According to a certain concept of the Altaic Turks, certain souls, after arriving in the afterlife, are sent back by Tengri and take up space in trees, stones, or even whole mountains. This idea that human souls can be found everywhere in nature watching over people perhaps creates a sense of melancholy. There could also be a sort of hidden animal kingdom within society. Ravens, which have positive connotations among Asian peoples, gather information and pass it on to hawks, which then fly on from town to town, country to long, informing other messengers. Other animals such as lions and cheetahs also occupy important positions in human society, depending on the cultural group. We must keep in mind that in ancient times and in the Middle Ages, people and animals lived relatively close to each other. For example, it was not unusual for noble families to acquire cheetahs as pets. Lastly, there are two elephants in the room that we need to address. First, is Tengrism a polytheistic or monotheistic religion? The classification is a matter of debate among scholars as it exhibits elements of both. Those who argue that Tengrism would be a monotheistic religion highlight the following facts. Tengri is the central deity in Tengrism and is viewed as the supreme and all-encompassing deity. This focus on a single, powerful god is characteristic of monotheistic religions. Furthermore, Tengrism places a strong emphasis on the unity of all things and the interconnectedness of the spiritual and physical realms. This suggests a belief in a single divine force that underlies and governs the universe, a force of which the Kök could be a part of. Thirdly, there is a lack of clear polytheistic structure. Unlike many polytheistic religions, Tengrism does not have a well-defined pantheon of gods with specific roles and attributes. Instead, it places more emphasis on spiritual practices and beliefs that transcend individual deities. Keep in mind, though, that this only applies to the Xiongnu and Kök-Türk eras. There are certainly more deities in the Turkic pantheon, but they seem to have been added later on. Proponents of the theory that Tengrism would be a polytheistic religion argue the following. While Tengri is the central deity, there are also many other deities and spirits that are worshipped and honored. These include local deities, ancestors, and spirits of nature. Our examples included Umay and Erlik, which were certainly more than just local beings with godlike superpowers, as well as the Yer-Su. Also, Tengrism is a diverse and decentralized religion, with different cultural and geographic variations. This leads to a wide range of beliefs and practices, including the worship of different deities and spirits. Thus, Kera, the son of Tengri, and Ulgen are actually two prime deities among several Turkic folk, including the Siberian Turkic peoples and the Tatars. Lastly, there is a fluidity of belief. Tengrism places a strong emphasis on personal experience and direct contact with the spiritual realm. This means that individual beliefs and practices can vary widely, and there is no centralized authority or doctrine that defines the religion as a whole. This last argument is what makes the classification of Tengrism so difficult. Simply put, there is no real authority over Tengrism. and to the best of our knowledge, there has never ever been a holy book either. Thus, Tengrism is not dogmatic. Perhaps it would be wise to state the following conclusion. While Tengrism exhibits elements of both monotheistic and polytheistic religions, it is perhaps best understood as a unique and complex spiritual system that cannot be easily categorized as one or the other. A spiritual system with a clear prime deity, the mightiest being in the universe, but not the only supernatural being. Over time, Tengrism evolved. The Mongols in the 13th century almost exclusively referred to Tengri as their god, even though Mongolic peoples have their own variants of Umay, for example. Furthermore, other peoples' mythologies also bear elements of Tengrism. The Hungarians believed in another version of Erlik called Ordog. The Mongols referred to Umay as Ehe. There is another elephant in the room, and it points to a question that many Turks have asked themselves for a long time. What ever happened to Tengrism? Tune in next time when we explore the influence of foreign religions among the Turks and Mongols and explain in detail how Tengrism went away, and if perhaps its return is imminent. Thank you so much for listening to Khan's podcast. We hope you enjoyed this one. If there is demand for further episodes, we will continue production. Leave your feedback in the comments section or write a message to Emre on Instagram and Twitter.